The scorching sun beat down on the bustling beach as Karen marched towards the lifeguard stand, her face contorted in a scowl. Towels and sandals flew in her wake, leaving a trail of chaos in her path. "You, lifeguard," she shrieked, her shrill voice cutting through the tranquil sounds of crashing waves. "How dare you just sit there while I was drowning?" All eyes turned towards the commotion as the lifeguard, a young man named Tyler, rose from his seat, perplexed. "Ma'am, I didn't see you in any distress. What happened?" Karen's nostrils flared, her chest heaving with indignation. "What happened? I'll tell you what happened. I was swimming peacefully when a wave knocked me over. I called for help, but you just ignored me." Tyler held up his hands, trying to defuse the situation. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I didn't hear you call for help. If you were in trouble, I would have responded immediately." "Don't give me that." Karen spat, her face reddening. "You're the lifeguard. It's your job to watch over everyone in the water. How dare you let me drown like that?" The crowd around them murmured, some shaking their heads in disbelief at Karen's outburst. Tyler took a deep breath, trying to remain calm and professional. "Ma'am, I can assure you that you were never in any real danger. If you had been struggling, I would have jumped in to assist you. But from where I was sitting, you seemed to be swimming just fine." Karen's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Tyler thought she might actually try to climb up into the lifeguard stand and attack him. Fine. I could have died out there, and you did nothing. I demand that you be fired immediately." Sensing the situation was spiraling out of control, Tyler decided to take a different approach. "Ma'am, I understand you're upset, but yelling and making demands isn't going to solve anything. Let's take a deep breath and talk this through calmly, okay?" Karen's lips pressed into a thin line, and for a brief moment, Tyler thought he might have diffused the situation. But then, her expression twisted into one of pure rage. Calm down. How dare you tell me to calm down? I'll have your job for this, you incompetent fool," she shrieked, her voice carrying across the beach. Tyler winced, realizing that no matter what he said or did, Karen was intent on making this a scene. With a heavy heart, he knew he had no choice but to call for backup. As he reached for his radio, Karen's tantrum reached a fever pitch, leaving all those who witnessed it stunned and bewildered. The commotion on the beach had quickly drawn a crowd, and it wasn't long before someone started recording the confrontation between Karen and the lifeguard Tyler. Within minutes, the video had been uploaded to social media, sparking an immediate firestorm. "Can you believe this Karen lady?" One user commented, "Their outrage palpable. The lifeguard was just doing his job, and she totally lost it on him." Another chimed in, "What an entitled woman. She should be ashamed of herself for making such a scene and trying to get the poor guy fired." As the video continued to circulate, the comments section quickly devolved into a heated debate, with people taking sides and passions running high. "This is why we can't have nice things," someone wrote. "Karens like this ruin it for everyone else. The lifeguard should just ignore her and let her make a fool of herself." Meanwhile, back on the beach, the situation had only escalated. Karen was now in full-blown meltdown mode, her face beet red as she continued to berate Tyler. "I know my rights, and you violated them. I'm going to sue the pants off this beach and have you fired for your incompetence," she shrieked, her finger jabbing accusingly at the lifeguard. Tyler, despite his best efforts to remain calm and professional, was starting to feel the strain. He knew that calling the police was an option, but he also didn't want to make the situation any worse than it already was. Just then, another lifeguard, a seasoned veteran named Sarah, came rushing over, having heard the commotion. "What's going on here?" she asked, her brow furrowed with concern. Tyler quickly explained the situation, and Sarah's expression hardened. She turned to Karen, her voice stern and unwavering. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the beach premises. Your behavior is unacceptable, and you're disrupting the peace. If you refuse to comply, we'll have no choice but to call the authorities." Karen's eyes widened, and for a moment, it seemed like she might actually back down. But then, a twisted smile spread across her face, and she let out a maniacal laugh. "Oh, you have no idea who you're dealing with," she said, her voice dripping with venom. "This is far from over." With that, she turned on her heel and stormed off, leaving a stunned crowd in her wake. As she disappeared from view, the social media firestorm continued to rage on, and Tyler couldn't help but wonder what other surprises Karen had in store. In the aftermath of the beach confrontation, the video of Karen's outburst had gone viral, sparking a nationwide discussion of entitled behavior and the challenges faced by service workers. The beach management team, recognizing the gravity of the situation, knew they had to act quickly to mitigate the fallout. The following day, Tyler and Sarah were summoned to an emergency meeting with the beach's director, a no-nonsense woman named Olivia. Tension filled the room as Olivia addressed the two lifeguards, her expression stern. "I've reviewed the incident, and let me be clear. Your actions were entirely appropriate," Olivia said, her gaze unwavering. "However, the publicity this has generated is a serious concern. We cannot have this kind of behavior reflected on our beach." Tyler and Sarah exchanged a worried glance, unsure of where this was leading. Olivia continued, "The woman in the video, Karen, has made numerous threats and demands, including filing a lawsuit against the beach. We need to get in front of this situation before it spirals out of control." Olivia paused, taking a deep breath. "As a result, we've decided to suspend both of you from your duties for the next 2 weeks with pay. This will give us time to assess the situation and formulate a response." Tyler's heart sank, and Sarah's brow furrowed in confusion. "But we didn't do anything wrong," Tyler protested, unable to hide his frustration. Olivia raised a hand, silencing him. "I understand your concern, but this is a necessary precaution. The beach's reputation is at stake, and we need to show that we take these kinds of incidents seriously." Sarah opened her mouth to argue, but Olivia cut her off. "This decision is final. I suggest you both use this time to consider how you can improve your communication skills and de-escalation tactics." Dismissed. As Tyler and Sarah left the meeting, a sense of disbelief and betrayal hung in the air. They had been disciplined for simply doing their jobs, while the true culprit, Karen, seemed to be getting away with her outrageous behavior. Meanwhile, Karen was basking in the attention her video had garnered. She had reached out to a local news station, demanding an interview and a public apology from the beach management. Sensing an opportunity for a sensational story, the news station eagerly obliged, further fueling the public's outrage. As the media circus continued to unfold, Tyler and Sarah retreated to their homes, wondering how they would navigate the fallout from this ordeal. The storm was far from over, and the consequences of Karen's actions were just beginning to be felt. While Tyler and Sarah were reeling from the suspension, Karen was busy orchestrating her next move. Emboldened by the attention she had garnered from the viral video, she was determined to take her crusade against the beach to the next level. Sitting in her living room, surrounded by stacks of legal documents, Karen's eyes gleamed with a twisted sense of triumph. She had hired a high-powered attorney, someone known for their ruthless tactics and win-at-all-costs mentality. Together, they were planning to sue the beach for negligence, emotional distress, and a host of other charges. "This is going to be a slam-dunk case," Karen's attorney, a slick-talking man named Bradley, assured her. "With the video evidence and your dramatic performance, the jury is sure to side with you. We'll make them pay for their incompetence." Karen nodded, a satisfied smile spreading across her face. "Good, good. I'd want to see those lifeguards punished for their complete disregard for my safety. And I want the beach to issue a full public apology, with a hefty compensation package to boot." Bradley chuckled, his eyes narrowing. "Oh, don't you worry, Karen. We'll make sure they feel the full force of your wrath. This is going to be a battle they'll never forget." Emboldened by her attorney's confidence, Karen set to work, gathering every bit of evidence she could find to support her case. She combed through news articles, social media posts, and even tried to track down the person who had filmed the original video. As the days passed, Karen's obsession with her crusade only deepened. She spent countless hours on the phone with her attorney, strategizing and fine-tuning their legal strategy. Her once pristine home had become a war room, littered with papers and files. Meanwhile, the beach management team was scrambling to prepare their defense. They knew that Karen's lawsuit posed a serious threat, not only to their reputation but to their financial stability as well. They had hired their own legal team, and the tension in the air was palpable. As the battle lines were drawn, Karen's determination only seemed to grow stronger. She was hell-bent on making the beach pay for the perceived injustice she had suffered, and she was willing to stop at nothing to achieve her goal. The stage was set for a legal showdown that would captivate the nation, as Karen's crusade threatened to upend the lives of everyone involved. As the legal battle between Karen and the beach management team intensified, the media circus surrounding the case only continued to grow. Karen's attorney, Bradley, wasted no time in filing a lawsuit, alleging a litany of charges, including negligence, emotional distress, and defamation. The beach's legal team, led by a seasoned litigator named Julia, knew they had their work cut out for them. They had reviewed the evidence, including the viral video, and were confident that their clients, Tyler and Sarah, had acted appropriately. However, they also recognized the power of Karen's high-profile crusade and the potential damage it could do to the beach's reputation. The first court hearing was a tense affair, with both sides presenting their arguments and jockeying for position. Karen, dressed in her finest power suit, sat in the front row, her eyes narrowed as she listened intently to the proceedings. "Your Honor, the evidence clearly shows that our client, Miss Karen, was in distress and calling for help, and the lifeguards on duty failed to respond in a timely manner," Bradley argued, his voice dripping with indignation. Julia, unfazed, stood to address the judge. "Your Honor, the video clearly shows that Miss Karen was not in any real danger. The lifeguards on duty, my clients, were attentive and responsive to the situation. This is nothing more than an attempt by Miss Karen to profit from a non-incident." The judge listened intently, his brow furrowed in concentration. "This is a serious matter, and I will need time to review the evidence and testimony before rendering a decision. We will reconvene in 2 weeks' time." As the court adjourned, Karen stormed out, her face flushed with anger. "This is an outrage," she shouted, pushing past reporters and onlookers. "I won't rest until those incompetent lifeguards are held accountable for their actions." Bradley hurried to catch up with her, trying to calm her down. "Don't worry, Karen. We have a strong case. The judge will see things our way, I'm sure of it." Meanwhile, Tyler and Sarah watched the proceedings from the sidelines, their hearts heavy with worry. They knew that the outcome of this case could have a profound impact on their careers and their lives. As the 2-week recess began, the battle lines were drawn, and both sides prepared for the next round of the legal showdown. The stakes were high, and the future of the beach and the lives of those involved hung in the balance. As the court reconvened for the next hearing, the tension in the room was palpable. Karen and her attorney, Bradley, entered with an air of confidence, convinced that the judge would rule in their favor. However, the tide was about to turn against them in a dramatic fashion. Julia, the beach's legal counsel, rose to present her case, her demeanor calm and assured. "Your Honor, we have evidence that clearly demonstrates the lifeguards on duty that day acted with professionalism and in accordance with established protocols." She then proceeded to call Tyler and Sarah to the stand, both of whom testified about the events leading up to Karen's outburst. They recounted their interactions with Karen, describing her erratic behavior and the fact that she had never actually been in distress. The lifeguards were attentive and responsive to the needs of beachgoers, Julia stated, her gaze unwavering. Ms. Karen's claims of negligence and emotional distress are simply unfounded. As the testimony unfolded, the judge's expression grew more and more skeptical. He listened intently, occasionally jotting down notes, his brow furrowed in concentration. When it came time for Bradley to cross-examine the lifeguards, he seemed to falter, his usual bravado fading. His questions were disjointed and lacked the confidence he had displayed during the opening arguments. The tide had turned, and it was becoming increasingly clear that the judge was not buying Karen's version of events. As the hearing drew to a close, the judge spoke, his voice grave. Based on the evidence presented, I find no merit to the claims made by Ms. Karen. The lifeguards acted appropriately and within the scope of their duties. This case is dismissed. The courtroom erupted in a murmur, and Karen's face twisted in a mask of utter disbelief. She stood up, her fists clenched, as Bradley tried in vain to calm her down. "This is an outrage," she screamed, her voice echoing through the hall. "I'll take this all the way to the Supreme Court if I have to." But as she was escorted out of the courtroom, it was clear that her crusade had been dealt a devastating blow. The judge's ruling had vindicated Tyler and Sarah, and the beach management team could breathe a collective sigh of relief. However, the ordeal was far from over, and Karen's thirst for revenge showed no signs of abating. The battle lines had been drawn, and the war was far from over. Despite the judge's decisive ruling in favor of the beach, Karen refused to back down. Fueled by her relentless sense of entitlement and a burning desire for vengeance, she was determined to take her crusade to the next level. Undeterred by the legal setback, Karen continued to bombard the beach with a barrage of threats and demands. She reached out to local news outlets, painting herself as the victim of a grave injustice and promising a bombshell revelation that would bring the beach to its knees. However, the tide of public opinion had already turned against her. The viral video, coupled with the court's ruling, had made it abundantly clear that Karen's behavior was nothing more than a shameless display of entitlement. The once sympathetic media outlets that had eagerly covered her story now viewed her with a growing sense of skepticism. As Karen's frantic efforts to salvage her crusade continued to falter, her personal life began to unravel. Her family and friends, embarrassed by the spectacle she had created, started to distance themselves, unwilling to be associated with her toxic behavior. Karen's obsession with the case also began to take a toll on her professional life. She had already lost her job due to her erratic behavior and constant absences, and now her reputation as a reliable and competent employee had been irrevocably tarnished. Desperate and alone, Karen turned to increasingly desperate measures. She began stalking the beach, harassing the staff and disrupting the daily operations. Her constant presence became a source of frustration and concern for the management team, who were forced to consider legal action to remove her from the premises. As the situation escalated, Tyler and Sarah watched with a mix of relief and trepidation. They were grateful that the court had vindicated them, but they couldn't help but feel a sense of pity for Karen, whose downfall had been so swift and so public. It was clear that Karen's obsession with her crusade had consumed her, leading her down a path of self-destruction. As the reality of her situation began to sink in, she found herself facing a future that was far more bleak and uncertain than she ever could have imagined. The once confident and entitled Karen was slowly becoming a cautionary tale, a reminder of the consequences that can arise when one's sense of entitlement spirals out of control. As the dust settled from the legal battle, Karen found herself at a crossroads. Her crusade against the beach had crumbled, leaving her feeling lost, defeated, and utterly alone. The once confident and entitled Karen had been reduced to a shell of her former self. With her personal and professional life in shambles, Karen was forced to confront the harsh realities of her actions. She had allowed her sense of entitlement to consume her, blinding her to the consequences of her behavior. The public humiliation and financial ruin she now faced were a bitter pill to swallow. In the quiet moments of reflection, Karen began to question the choices that had led her down this path. She realized that her actions had not only damaged her own life, but had also taken a toll on those around her, including the lifeguards she had so brazenly accused. Slowly, a new sense of understanding began to dawn on Karen. She recognized that her sense of entitlement had not only robbed her of her own happiness, but had also deprived her of the empathy and compassion that are so essential to living a fulfilling life. It was a painful realization, but one that ultimately proved to be the catalyst for Karen's transformation. With the support of a compassionate therapist, she began the arduous process of unlearning her entitled behaviors and cultivating a deeper sense of humility and self-awareness. As the months passed, Karen's journey of personal growth became a testament to the power of redemption. She reached out to Tyler and Sarah, offering a heartfelt apology for her actions and expressing her sincere gratitude for their professionalism and restraint. To the surprise of many, the lifeguards, recognizing the sincerity of her remorse, welcomed Karen's gesture with open arms. They understood that true growth often comes through the painful process of confronting one's own flaws and shortcomings. In the end, Karen's story served as a powerful reminder that even the most entitled and self-absorbed individuals are capable of change. By embracing humility and taking responsibility for her actions, she had found a path to redemption, and in doing so, had inspired those around her to reconsider the way they view the world and treat others. The once infamous Karen had become a symbol of hope, a testament to the transformative power of self-reflection and a humble heart.